You don't need a backyard, you don't need acres, you don't even need soil in the ground. Everything you're looking at right now, every single plant is growing in a container. Today, I'm walking you through 10 container garden ideas that actually work, not just cute for Pinterest ideas. Ideas that produce real harvests, save you real money, and fit into whatever space you've got, whether that's a fire escape, a concrete patio, or a sunny windowsill. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which containers to use, what to plant in them, and the small details that separate a struggling container garden from one that thrives. Let's get into it. Section 1. Why containers work. Before we get to the 10 ideas, let's talk about why container gardening is actually a smart method, not just a compromise for people without land. Containers give you total control over your soil quality. No fighting compacted clay or contaminated urban soil. You control drainage, you control sun exposure by moving pots around, and you control pests. Fewer ground-crawling insects, fewer soil-borne diseases. The trade-off is that containers dry out faster and nutrients wash out faster. So every idea I share today comes with the specific adjustments that make up for that. Keep that in mind because it's the difference between a container garden that limps along and one that actually feeds you. Idea number 1, the 5-gallon bucket tomato. Idea number 1, the 5-gallon bucket tomato. This is the workhorse of container gardening, and for good reason. Drill 6 to 8 quarter-inch holes in the bottom for drainage. Fill with a mix of potting soil and compost, roughly 70-30. 1 tomato plant per bucket, staked or caged from day 1 because tomato roots fill a 5-gallon bucket fast and the plant gets top-heavy. The productivity secret here is bury 2/3 of the stem when you transplant. Tomatoes grow roots along their buried stem, and in a container, more roots means more access to the limited nutrients you've got. That single trick can meaningfully increase your yield in a small container. Water daily in hot weather. 5-gallon buckets dry out fast in direct sun. Idea 2, the vertical pallet herb wall. Idea 2, the vertical pallet herb wall. If your floor space is limited but you have a blank wall getting decent light, this is your answer. Take a standard wood pallet, staple landscape fabric across the back and bottom of each slot to hold soil in, fill with a well-draining potting mix, and plant shallow-rooted herbs, basil, thyme, oregano, chives, parsley. Let it lay flat for 2 to 3 weeks first so roots establish, then stand it upright against the wall. This matters. If you plant it vertically from day 1, the soil just falls out. The productivity angle is herbs are one of the highest value per square inch things you can grow. A single store-bought herb clamshell costs almost as much as a whole herb plant, and one plant gives you months of harvests. Idea 3, self-watering window boxes for greens. Idea 3, self-watering window boxes specifically for salad greens and lettuce. You can buy these or build one, an inner pot with drainage holes sitting inside an outer container that holds a water reservoir, with a wicking material, an old cotton rope or strip of fabric, pulling water up into the soil as needed. Greens have shallow roots and dry out fast, so this consistent moisture is what prevents bolting and bitter leaves. Fill with a mix heavy in compost since greens are nitrogen hungry. Here's the productivity move. Practice succession planting. Don't sow the whole box at once. Plant 1/3 of it every 2 weeks. That way, you're harvesting continuously instead of getting one big flush of lettuce that bolts before you can eat it all. Idea 4, the stacking strawberry tower. This solves the biggest problem with strawberries in small spaces. They spread. Whether you use a dedicated terracotta strawberry pot with side pockets or simply stack 3 graduated planters on top of each other, you're maximizing vertical growing space for a plant that would otherwise sprawl across the ground. Plant ever-bearing varieties rather than June-bearing if you want harvests spread across the whole season instead of one concentrated burst. The key maintenance detail, the top of a stacked tower dries out much faster than the bottom. Water from the top slowly enough that it has time to soak each tier, or better yet, add a length of perforated pipe down the center as a built-in irrigation channel. Idea 6, hanging baskets for trailing varieties, not just for flowers. Cherry tomatoes bred for hanging baskets, trailing cucumbers, and even bush-type squash varieties can all work overhead, which means you're using vertical airspace that would otherwise go completely unused. The productivity principle here is stacking your garden in layers: ground-level containers, mid-height shelving, and hanging space above. Most small-space gardeners only use one of these three zones. Using all three can effectively multiply your garden area without adding a single square foot of floor space. Line the basket with coco coir instead of sphagnum moss. It holds moisture longer and needs less frequent watering. Idea number 7, the mini container adaptation of the Three Sisters method: corn, beans, and squash grown together. In a large container, at least 15 gallons, plant a dwarf or short-season corn variety in the center, pole beans around the edge to climb the corn stalks, and a trailing squash variety spilling over the container's rim to shade the soil and suppress weeds. This works because the three plants support each other. Corn gives beans something to climb, beans fix nitrogen in the soil that corn and squash both use heavily, squash leaves shade the soil, keeping moisture in. It's a more advanced idea, but it's genuinely one of the most efficient uses of a single large container because you're getting 3 harvests from one footprint instead of one. Idea 8, deep containers for perennial fruit like dwarf citrus or fig trees. This is a longer-term investment, but it's one of the most rewarding. Choose a deep container, at least 20 inches deep, with excellent drainage. These plants hate wet feet. Use a well-draining mix formulated for citrus or a standard potting mix amended with extra perlite. The critical detail most people miss is these need repotting every 2 to 3 years, sizing up gradually, not going straight from a small pot to a huge one. Oversized containers hold excess moisture the roots can't use, which leads to root rot. If you're in a cooler climate, this is also your answer for growing fruit you otherwise couldn't. The container lets you bring the tree indoors before frost. Idea 9, a small composting container paired directly with your garden setup. Even in an apartment, a countertop compost bin or a small tumbling composter on a balcony can turn kitchen scraps into the exact soil amendment your containers need most. Container soil depletes fast because there's no surrounding earth to replenish nutrients naturally, so feeding it compost regularly is what keeps a container garden productive year after year, instead of declining season by season. This closes the loop. Food scraps become plant food, which becomes more food. It's the single highest leverage habit for long-term container garden productivity, and it costs you nothing but a bit of counter space. And idea 10, the modular shelving microfarm. And idea 10, the one that ties it all together, a modular shelving microfarm. Take a simple metal shelving unit, the kind you'd use for a garage, and turn each shelf into a growing zone. Bottom shelf, shallow trays for microgreens, which you can harvest in 1 to 2 weeks. Middle shelf, containers of lettuce and herbs. Top shelf, closest to a window or grow light, fruiting plants that need the most light, like peppers or dwarf tomatoes. If natural light is limited, this is where a simple LED grow light strip mounted under each shelf makes the whole system possible regardless of how much sun your space actually gets. This idea essentially takes ideas 1 through 9 and organizes them into a single space-efficient system. It's the difference between having scattered pots and having an actual production system. Closing and recap. So to recap the 10 ideas: 5-gallon bucket tomatoes, the vertical pallet herb wall, self-watering window boxes for greens, stacking strawberry towers, fabric bags for root vegetables, hanging baskets for trailing varieties, a mini Three Sisters container, deep containers for dwarf fruit, a compost container to feed the whole system, and a modular shelving microfarm to bring it all together. None of these require a yard. None of them require a big budget to start. What they require is choosing the right container for the right plant and staying consistent with water and feeding, since containers don't forgive neglect the way ground soil does. Start with just 1 or 2 of these. Get them right, then expand. Outro/call to action. If this gave you a few ideas for your own space, let me know in the comments which one you're trying first. Subscribe for more honest, practical growing guides from the Peaceful Homestead, and I'll see you in the next one.